So, of course, the Labour Party are trying to overhaul workers' rights, which sounds brilliant. How can you be against overhauling workers' rights? Well, I guess if the overhauls amount to the ability to give staff in pubs the power to ban people from being able to discuss sensitive political topics, then yeah, maybe I might be opposed to this. Because, like everything that the Labour Party do, what they plan sounds nice in the abstract and translates into an unmitigated evil that will finally put the final nail in the British pub. Because of course, this is what Labour have been doing for ages. I mean, a couple of months ago, they were saying, "Oh, well, we're going to ban smoking outside of pubs," because of course, under the Tony Blair government, they banned smoking inside of pubs. They didn't say you can have a smoking or non-smoking pub. No, it is just a flat ban for all pubs. And then Keir Starmer was like, "Yeah, we want to ban people smoking outside the pubs." It's like, why? Who was that harming? But anyway, moving on to this. As the Times reports, pubs could ban patrons from talking about transgender rights because overheard conversations could amount to harassment of staff, the Equality and Human Rights Commission warns. Imagine the people whose job it is to enforce the arbitrary, woke laws of this country going to your government and saying, "Look, man, I think this is actually going to start like turning into a form of oppression. I think the woke might be going a bit far." I mean, that's literally at the point we're at, where the woke institution whose job it is to instantiate wokeness into this country is like, "Keir, ease up, man. This is going a bit far." So we'll go through this article. This is just remarkable. Remarkable about the phenomenal tone deafness of what this country needs right now, right? What a government should be doing in this country is, of course, encouraging the flourishing of pubs, because it is in the flourishing of pubs that English community life most takes hold. It's where things happen, and you know what I think they're worried about? It's in the pub where revolutions were fomented. It's in the pub where political attitudes change, where people actually talk to one another and say, "I didn't really agree with that. Yeah, maybe we should vote differently." And historically, this is where the English and American revolutions were fomented, by the way. So anyway, the pubs could ban customers from speaking about contentious beliefs such as religious views or transgender rights, over fear of falling foul of Labour's workers' rights reforms. The government has been warned by the Equality Watchdog. Even the people whose jobs it is to enforce this are like, "Look, man, you're going too far." But they said that rules could disproportionately curtail freedom of expression and apply to overheard conversations. So they've proposed that they must protect workers from being harassed at work by third parties, such as customers or clients. I'm pretty sure we have laws to do that anyway. Right? I'm pretty sure there are going to be laws on the books that mean that I can't just go into a shop and start harassing the staff. I'm absolutely certain that that's already forbidden, right? But the EHRC has said that this was particularly challenging because cases involving philosophical beliefs, such as people's views on religion or women's rights or whatever, because many business owners do not understand such topics, are protected by equality law, right? So the legal definition of what amounts to a philosophical belief is complex and not well understood by employers. I doubt it's well understood by judges either, to be honest. It is, I mean, and ultimately, all of these things are philosophical beliefs. So essentially, what this is saying is anything a person, and this will play out eventually, I imagine, in the courts, but essentially, it will amount to anything that is a belief held by a person falls under the category of being a philosophical belief because, well, it's a really broad category. Like, you can say literally anything is a philosophical belief if you want. And then we get to the roots of, well, what is philosophy in the first place? And it's it's basically how we think about the world. And so anything anyone believes could be argued to be a philosophical belief. So anyway, the legal definition is complex, and and it is arguable these difficulties may lead to disproportionate restriction of the right to freedom of expression under Article 10. That's true, but the question is why? Why are we now expanding our laws? And one might argue, if one was being charitable, that this is the law of unintended consequences coming into play. As in, well, we thought we were just going to banish bigotry from the world. And what this is, and just, we were trying to do the right thing. And we just wanted to make sure that this couldn't happen or that couldn't happen. And now if you latch it down through society, you realize that overheard conversations in pubs, you're going to have to whisper in the pubs if you want to criticize transgenderism and stuff like that, lest a woke barmaid or something hear your conversation and report you to the woke Stasi. Like this is where we are heading to at this point, right? The EHRC said that many of the reforms do have the potential to reduce workplace inequalities. Remember, this is about instantiating a modern form of communism in Britain. Right? Workplace inequalities in the pub between you and the patrons and the bar staff. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Right? It said that sexual harassment by third parties was a significant issue. You've already got a category of crime for it. If it's sexual harassment, that's already a crime. Why? Like, sexual harassment isn't permitted just because someone works in a bar, right? It's already a crime. It's already something you could report and have action taken over. Anyway, it's a significant issue, particularly in customer-facing jobs and for young people, and it supported measures specifically addressing that. But protection from other types of harassment by customers represented complex questions. Well, hang on a second. Is the bar staff overhearing my conversation a form of harassment? And actually, and I'm very, very, very right-wing in this, I would say no, actually. The bar staff overhearing my conversation, not their business, not a form of harassment, not interested in their opinion on it, actually. But anyway, of course, similar proposals were removed from previous legislation because of concerns that it disproportionately curtail the right to freedom of expression. And again, notice how abstractly we have to say it. No, I should be able to talk to my friend about whatever I want in a pub. It shouldn't actually be the bar staff's business at all. If they overhear it, fair enough. But I'm not talking to them, so it's nothing to do with them. So how could they possibly make an argument that they're being harassed? Harassment has to have intentionality and it has to be done to you. It's absolutely preposterous where we are. But again, the Labour government are just going to, like a bull in a china shop, thoughtlessly impose this, and suddenly you are going to have it so that essentially you will have to kind of vet the pubs you go to, right? You're going to have to essentially vet it. You go in, you have to get to know the bar staff and go, look guys, if I talk about things that aren't woke, are you going to report me to the police? I mean, I'm sure most pubs in England are like, no, of course we're not going to. We don't care. We're against woke as well. I'm sure they're going to be like that. But there are going to be places in metropolitan areas, maybe something like Brighton or Bristol, where you may well fall foul of this. So be warned. This is something that is coming down the pipeline that the Labour government will probably just slap on the entire country. Again, one size fits all, because they're just such utter tyrants. They're such tyrants. They don't even realise why this might be bad. Why? And again, they're against the very concept of English community life. So, of course, they're happy to do this. Anyway, the ministers admitted in an assessment carried out alongside this that there were, particularly in areas of legitimate debate, which are carried out in a contentious manner, there may be issues. So, yep, you're going to try and prohibit those through fiat, through government legislation. The government insisted that the definition of what constitutes harassment, unwarranted conduct that is the purpose or effect of violating the recipient's dignity or creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, or humiliating or offensive environment is a high threshold. Yeah, I don't think it is, though, actually. Because, again, this is such a broad definition that someone say, well, this guy was like, maybe we should reduce the number of immigrants in the country, and I myself am an immigrant, therefore I feel that my dignity is violated. I'm in an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment. Again, it's a very, very broad category of things that you could get caught on any single one of these, and therefore he's banned forever, right? He's not allowed to talk about this in the pub, which is where the English go to discuss social issues. But even then, the human rights court were like, look, we want you to carry out more work on balancing these competing rights, because remember, every right is in competition with other rights. And it's difficult for now the pub boss has to be the one who determines it. He has to become a legislator and a judge in this case. He has to decide. He has to figure out what the actual law says on this and whether this is all correct and true. It's like, how is that his job? Like, this is not, these people are not responsible for this kind of thing. And that was what the sort of, the old English tradition of free speech was about. It's like, no, it's not my job. You have the right to say what you want. Just live your lives and figure it out. If you feel people having conversations creates an offensive or intimidating, hostile environment, that's a you problem, not the problem with the customer, right? So anyway, The watchdog warns, the legal definition of what amounts to a philosophical belief is complex and not well understood by employers, and again, like I said, and by the government and judges. It's arguable that these difficulties may lead to a disproportionate restriction of the right to freedom of expression. Yes, and they don't care. They don't care. They've already been told this. They've already rejected this. They're going to enforce this, and at some point in the near future, someone is going to be in front of a judge because they said, you know what, guys, I actually just don't believe in the trans stuff. I don't agree with it. And someone who is woke, who works in this pub, will take exception to it and realize that they can exercise power over that person, and boom, legal punishments. This is going to be the future of England going forward. Absolutely disgraceful. I can't stand this. There's a kind of spiritual level, and again, like the mealy mouth, well, free speech is a concept of British values, but of course they're right that the employment bill protects employees, and well, it's a serious issue. It's like, you're not allowed to sexually harass people, you're not allowed to intimidate them, you're not allowed to do any of these things already, and now you're just expanding that so the customers can't even talk in the pub. So is this going to help or hinder pubs? Is this good for the economy or bad for the economy? Since that's the only metric they care about, since they don't care in any way, shape or form about the spiritual texture of the country, whether we can feel safe and relaxed and open in our own country, since they don't care about that, is this going to employ more people? Or is it going to cause more people to lose their jobs? Where people are like, look, I just can't go to the pub and chat with my mates anymore. I'm just going to invite them around to my house or something so we can talk, because at least the government doesn't have any jurisdiction there yet. And again, this is just a further enervating set of decisions that have been made to degrade the country, degrade what community life was in this country, degrade the individual freedoms of the average Englishman. Like, you are going to have the what they call them, the informants of a soft Soviet-style bureaucracy waiting to overhear you, and you'll get dobbed in, and they will come around and be like, sorry, you were talking about trans rights in a pub or immigration in a pub or whatever, and now the police are knocking at your door because someone felt unsafe. You're in trouble. The state is on your back now. This is awful. This is absolutely awful. And again, it's just, in each individual case, it's probably not going to be that bad, but it's going to poison the social life of this country. It's going to make people nervous about talking. I mean, it's more nervous than they already are about talking about the things they want to talk about. I can't stress enough how bad I think this is. And a spokesman for the British Beer and Pub Association said, well, any legislation must be carefully drafted to make sure it doesn't have unintended consequences. Well, is this an unintended consequence? I mean, maybe it's not. Such as pub workers expected to decide whether private conversations between customers constitute a violation of law. Like, what are we doing, man? We are so lost. If that, that's the concern, isn't it? That's the concern. Could a private conversation constitute a violation of the law? And the answer, in any normal time period, would have been no. Obviously not. What a preposterous... I mean, probably not since Charles I and the Star Chamber was this an issue in England. For hundreds of years, the idea that a private conversation could constitute a violation of the law is, in fact, one of the core freedoms of Englishmen. Like, one of the things that we were proud of against other countries. That this was not something that happened. And that's why revolutionaries from all over Europe would flee to England. Because, at least in England, you could safely have a private conversation without the law breathing down your neck. And now, look where we are. Just absolutely look where we are. I just can't... to make sure I don't violate some sort of Communications Act, I'm going to stop it there, because this is just the worst. I don't know. The Labour Party, I was going to say it's the worst thing the Labour Party have ever done, but no, the Labour Party have got such a long litany of terrible things that they have done. This probably isn't the worst of it. It's just really, really bad, right? It's just really, really bad. This is a terrible, terrible precedent set, terrible thing to have in law, and a terrible attitude and atmosphere to create in England, right? Again, this goes completely against what it meant to be an Englishman, what it meant to live in England, where we could feel safe and secure and protected by the law, not tyrannized under it. This is wrong on a spiritual and moral level in every way. And again, our thick-headed Labour government, who only 20% of the population, the eligible population, even voted for, have imposed it on us. And will Nigel Farage, if Reform win, do anything about it? Will the Conservatives repeal this if they wouldn't do anything about it? Probably not. That's the problem. Like, for some reason, the Conservatives are just fine. Just leave in place every tyrannical measure that the Labour Party put in above us and don't just remove them. They could have removed them anytime. It could have been repeal central. It could have been just, like, literally an anti-print for legislation. Just, it could have been repealing it all. A swear to the lot of it. But no, we're going to be stuck with this for generations. Absolutely atrocious.